safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
Safe space.
A place where I can be free.
Somewhere I feel like I won't be judged.
My bedroom.
A place without fear.
Hi, and welcome to Safe Space, a podcast for open, honest, and deeply human conversations about mental well-being. I'm your host, Paulyne Wanyonyi, and I'm really glad you're here today. We've spent a lot of this series talking about how we think and talk about suicide, and today we want to explore how this topic shows up in different kinds of media. Whether it's a news headline, a film scene, or a lyric in a song, it tends to stop us in our tracks. You might find yourself feeling shock, maybe sadness, sometimes confusion. But we rarely pause to ask, what stories are we actually telling when we talk about suicide? And more importantly, whose stories get left out? We need to think about these questions because storytelling is powerful. It can create empathy or deepen stigma. Let's get specific and talk about Kenyan media. We tend to see suicide reduced to a single headline, like university student takes own life after failing exams. There's no context and no compassion. The focus seems to just be impact or views. This style mirrors Western reporting templates, which focus on the individual and strip away communal nuance. But in many Kenyan settings, pain and healing are deeply collective experiences. In recent years, we can see a few Kenyan film projects try to thoughtfully explore themes of trauma and mental health, reflecting the complexities of these experiences. For instance, the film Lusala, directed by Mugambi Thiga. Although this film does not explicitly depict suicide, it does delve into the emotional struggles within a Nairobi family, offering a grounded and relatable portrayal of mental health issues. More recently, shows like Volume have begun to engage with these themes even more directly. For example, by including a storyline that suggests the suicide of a key character. This marks a significant shift from traditional Kenyan media, where suicide has often been treated in a cryptic manner, if mentioned at all. Developments like these indicate a growing willingness to engage with complex subjects more openly and compassionately. But we also have to think about how global media approaches this topic. Remember 13 Reasons Why? For a while, it was pretty viral here. It was graphic, emotional, and really popular with teens. But there's also been some criticism that says that it romanticized suicide, lacked cultural sensitivity, and failed to offer real-time local resources for support. It's a good reminder to ask, are the stories we're sharing really made for us, or are we just borrowing them? Then there's social media, where conversations move even faster. According to data from Stocklytics in 2024, Kenyans spend nearly 4 hours daily on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. A vague caption, a sad lyric, or the reactions to stories about people who have passed can quietly shape perceptions of mental health, often without our realizing it. One of the most damaging myths in all these spaces is that you can always tell when someone's struggling. Yet over 70% of people who die by suicide show no obvious signs. Another myth, that suicide is selfish. These ideas erase complexity and make it harder for people to seek help. Still, not all media is harmful. Some Kenyan musicians, filmmakers, podcasters, and spoken word artists are pushing back, naming pain, sharing stories, and offering solidarity. Some work is raw, and some of it is uplifting, but all of it is important. So, today we're asking, who's telling the story? What myths are being recycled? And how can media, journalism, art, and social platforms be a space for support and not silence? To explore this further, we're joined by Dr. Marion. Let's get to the episode. Welcome to the show, Dr. Marion.
Thank you.
It's very lovely to have you here. Thank you for agreeing to be here and having this conversation with us. May I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. My name is Dr. Marion Mutwiri. I am a marriage and family therapist. I teach at USIU Africa, but I also run a practice called Farm Hope Psychotherapy and Consultancy, where we see individuals, couples, families, and organizations to support them with mental health and relationship challenges, to prevent, to intervene, and also to help support in rehabilitation.
Okay, amazing. We'll make sure to add you to our catalogue of resources for our community.
Great.
Again, thank you for being here. So we are doing a series on suicide, and we're trying to cover it from different aspects to get a deeper understanding on what suicide is and the different things that influence our perception of it, etc.
Yes.
And today the conversation we are having is on media and myths and the stories we tell around suicide. So to begin, in your opinion, how is suicide portrayed in Kenyan media, and how does it affect how Kenyans understand suicide?
I think my experience with engaging in conversation about suicide in this country in the media began in 2012. I remember being in a media station where we were beginning to talk about high school students who would get their grades in February and begin to commit suicide. And I went there as a psychologist with lots of hope that we were going to address the nation and encourage people to seek help. But I left disappointed. I left disappointed because the whole issue was a sensation. It was a story. It was a morning show where I felt the host wanted more people to watch. And because there were a series of suicides that had happened, I felt that the story was just based on what we want people to know. And I remember at the end, they played a story that left everybody amazed, that left everybody feeling, this is the big deal about suicide. And it was sad for me because I thought we were informing, we were teaching, we were encouraging people to understand suicide as a mental health problem, not a moral issue. And you see, as media, we framed our understanding of suicide from the law. And before last year, January, specifically on the 9th, 2025, suicide was decriminalised in this country. But for the longest time, we've held the pre-colonial rule that suicide is a crime and suicidal attempt is a crime. And therefore, media kept being afraid of presenting the problem. Because when we give you a story, if you didn't die, then chances are you should be picked up and accused of attempted suicide. And therefore, the lens we used was it's a crime, it's a moral problem, and it's a spiritual problem. And therefore, our reporting was just to tell the story. And to tell the story from a place of, wow, this is a single thing happening. This is what is going on. Not beginning to portray it as we have, as a community, we have a mental health problem. And it's affecting people between this age and this age. And it's not just our problem, because if it was only our problem, then we would not have it in the sustainable goals, that are global, where we are talking about we need to reduce suicide and by improving mental health. So I feel our media has had its hands tied for a long time, where the view of suicide and the reporting has been just to tell a story rather than to educate. I look at the same media during COVID and I'm amazed at the work we did. We did not just tell people someone is dying of COVID and get the numbers going. We told them, put on a mask, wash your hands, like we gave solutions. We did not just tell a story. Yeah.
Okay, that's a powerful place to start. I think, and I see this particularly in Kenyan media.
Yeah.
there's the focus on sensationalization,
Yes.
right? And getting a story. And we find that with different topics, sometimes instead of trying to educate, to help people understand what's going on, to bring about compassion, we are focusing on getting a headline, getting
Yes.
clicks,
Yes.
I guess going viral.
And viewers.
That's what it's happening. Exactly.
I mean, because basically it's about viewership.
Exactly. And having, I guess, that conversation in that particular way where, when people say any news is good news, as long as people are talking about you,
Yes.
then we're good.
Yeah.
And I think that brings in the second question. We often see headlines that sensationalize suicide, just like you said. It's like the stories are dramatic, there's emphasis on the method, it's about emotional shock value. What are the psychological risks of telling stories this way without context or compassion?
Stories are powerful.
Yes.
There's a theory in marriage and family therapy, we call it narrative therapy. Narrative therapy tells us that we are people who are full of stories. And as Africans, stories sell. You tell a good story, you'll be remembered. And therefore, because every media station reports, we also report on our socials, isn't it?
Yeah.
So whoever tells a better story and promises to keep telling the story as it's hot and sensational, the more we are able to watch it. But also stories are memorable. Stories are memorable, and therefore it touches me. It engages my mind and my imagination. Media is supposed to inform. Media is supposed to entertain. Media is supposed to teach. Media is supposed to report, to highlight social issues, but it's also supposed to be responsible enough to ensure that we are not highlighting negativity. We are not only just reporting and holding back from social responsibility of being able to help people deal with a situation. So the fact that our telling stories and our titles, I was actually looking at some of the titles with also the work I have published on suicide in Kenya. I was looking at the titles, and titles like "Gone Too Soon," titles like "It's Happening Again," the pandemic of suicide, makes us want to read fast. And what are we looking for? We are looking for the information. We are looking for the methods that even as we've thought about, And you see, it's not in a therapy session where it runs for 1 hour and I'm going to come, even when I ask, because I have to suicide assess, check risks and also assess attempts, assess thoughts, assess whether you have a plan, and then we have ways that we are able to help you to be able to postpone, negotiate postponing, negotiate reporting. Our system of reporting is totally different from what we see in the US or even in Europe, because there's mandatory reporting for anyone who has suicidal ideation, not for purposes of criminalization, but for purposes of support and for purposes of being able to actually have hospitalization. So as a clinician, when we hear this, we not only want to get the story to understand, but also to help and to support and to call somebody on board. Because by the time you are thinking about suicide, you are not okay. You are sick. You are unwell. There are high chances that you have high levels of depressive symptoms. And therefore, for me, if I check you and I see that you are having high levels of suicidal thoughts, the first place I take you is to the hospital. And we encourage a 24-hour hospitalization for you to be able to be for your body to be able to be helped to get into normal levels of the dopamine and the serotonin, so that you're able to get down. So when we are reporting without knowing who is listening, what it is that they will do with that information, we are not being responsible, especially if we leave out the last part of it of saying if you have these symptoms, if you have these risk factors, then these are some numbers to call. These are some places that you should be able to go. In fact, generally we say, if you are experiencing these symptoms, just go to the nearest hospital. Yeah, just go to the nearest hospital. So when we give details, when we give, just focus on the story, then it doesn't help. There needs to be a end product of what then can we do. Because we know for sure that statistics tell us that 1 in 4 students at the university has considered suicide. And it has touched many of us. I lost a personal relative through suicide, and that has never left my mind. And that's why it has been an interest of study for me, because it bites.
Yeah. And listening to everything you have said, what would you say, what kind of framing is generally more responsible or helpful when discussing suicide?
I think one is be able to, if we want to talk about the story, we need to also bring experts on board, okay? That we provide an opportunity of informing the public that suicide is a sign of mental health problems and it is preventable. Every single suicide is preventable. Secondly is when we bring experts on board, they will, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they will help make meaning of the story you're giving. And they will be able to add the levels of empathy that are needed that might not be with a reporter. They might also help to provide direction, to generate a sense of hope, and to normalize. Because the other thing is that we see it as abnormal, because you can't tell that I have been thinking about it as long as we are seated together watching news and listening, even as families, okay? But also, we need to use this opportunity, because media is important. We need to use these opportunities to help families begin to have these conversations at the dinner table. How can we convert this into conversation? Into conversation of my 15-year-old, with my 13-year-old, conversation with my emerging adults, with my students, with my clients. Like, how can we be able to do that? But the other thing is that as a community, we need to stop using our experiences as points of humor. Because I think because of how some of us were brought up, is if you threatened suicide, you would be threatened to be given the tools to do it.
True.
So it was not taken very seriously. I know there is fear that people are manipulative, but I would rather be cautious about being manipulated than cry about being ignorant and avoiding to deal with a situation that gives me tears. I would rather overreact, even as a parent or as a clinician, than underreact. And therefore, as media, we need to encourage some serious conversation and not use it as a place of humor. And we need to be able to distinguish between the days that are past and the days that we are today. I think of two things that have really worried me. One was, I think in 2013, 2014, there was a movie that had been out called 13 Reasons Why.
The series,
Yeah,
yes.
that series. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was working as a youth pastor. And we lost so many young people as they kept watching the series. And we began now to have these conversations in the church, to have families begin to talk about it. And we went down to what we are not talking about, and that media should also highlight. What are the causes? What are the reasons? Okay? My study was looking at how does how I grow up impact on my decision as an emerging adult whether to commit suicide or not. And one of the things I discovered is that we are never prepared to solve problems. We are not taught to solve problems. We have families that have highlighted silence. When there's a problem, we cover things under the rug. As long as nobody lifts it, we are fine. We also are not a help-seeking culture. In fact, we have sayings in communities that tell us, don't tell what's happening at home. And therefore, young people told me, I never saw my parents seek help. They fought, they quarreled, they hid. They woke up in the morning after a bad quarrel at night, and we all smiled at one another, and we went to work, and life went on. And therefore, the place of us being able to go down to what's going on in our families, that is making us not to be resilient, that is making us to think that the only way to solve a problem is to end our lives. There are so many other alternatives. The other thing is a song that I actually found my children listening to, my youngest, 10 years. And I was away when he tells me, Mom, I found a new song. And then he starts singing it to me, Dumb Ways to Die. And I was like, you're 10 years old. How did you even get to that song? He was just watching TV and it popped up. And the boy had totally learned the song. And it has 10 ways. Shoot yourself in the bathroom. Slit your throat with a knife. And you're listening to that and saying, why can't we have some censoring of some of these things? But also, why don't we help our children? Because on that call, I just had to call it out. I said, no, that's not a good song to listen to. Because do you want to die? It has a very good tune that a child will listen to and enjoy. But then what is it teaching that child? So we must be able to create movies, songs, news items that give solutions rather than just keep highlighting the problems. Yeah.
Okay. You've touched on very many important points, and I think I just want to emphasize, when you've mentioned songs, you've mentioned the stories we tell ourselves at home and in the community, and as we were conceptualizing this episode, the thing we kept thinking about is media, myths, and the stories we tell, which you've touched on, I think, all of that. And sometimes when we think about media and stories, maybe we only think about news. But just like you said, it's so many things. It's songs, it's stories, stories we read or stories that we're actually telling in our communities. And, you've mentioned something else that we have been thinking about as we've been working on this series, about how as a community we really silence a lot of these things. Just like you said, we grow up learning to be resilient, or don't take these problems out of home. There's a problem at home, but keep quiet. Yeah, this is not for out of home. So just like you said, some people now, you've seen chaos happening at home, but who do you talk to, right? Then you're supposed to come out here and act as if everything is okay, when truly it's not, and that can escalate and cause so many problems.
And sometimes we say to employers, you need to give room to a person to be human, because by the time I get to the lift to come up, how are you expecting me to leave all my troubles at home? Like literally how? Yes. How do I compartmentalize that part? And that is why people leave their homes to come and commit suicide in the office.
Yes.
Because you cannot separate a human being over the troubles they left at home. And if you look at what we have been seeing as a pattern, it's either happening at home or at the workplace.
Yeah. I really hope that through this series people can just make room for such conversations and to accept that, maybe to voice that things are not okay.
Yes.
We need help. Let's talk to somebody.
And it's okay not to be okay.
It's
okay
fine.
to walk into the office and tell everyone, okay, peace, today I'm not in my...
It's not a good day.
Yeah, it's not one of the best days, The
Yes.
same way you'd walk in and say, guys, I have a flu. I have a flu, don't walk near me. It's so normal for us to admit that we are having a physical health problem. Who laughs at you when you have malaria? Nobody. So why would you laugh at me when I'm experiencing anxiety and depressive disorders or symptoms?
Yeah.
We need to normalize it to a level where going to a therapist, going to a psychiatrist becomes a normal thing. In fact, I encourage each one of us every year, 5 times, see your psychologist, see your therapist, so that you're able to deal with issues that are already present. So that next year we'll deal with next year's issues. So that for those of us who've never done it, we have childhood issues that have never been resolved that become highlighted at the place of work or in a relationship.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. And the other very important point that you said, and that one I just want to emphasize completely, is bringing experts on board to actually have these conversations, and not just in the newsrooms, but also, nowadays a lot of news comes from us as well. You find influencers, are breaking news or talking about things, and many times everybody speaks as if they're an expert, which is a problem. Right? And the responsible thing to do is to bring actual experts on board, because you have a following and some people take your word as law.
That's true.
But you may be coming from a point of, maybe you don't have the information, you don't have the expertise. And like you said, it's very, very important to bring the experts on board. You can create that room for the conversation, but not to speak as the authority if you're not the authority.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I want to agree with you on that. And also to say that the expert also speaks with an ethical understanding of the boundaries that they have. Because it's very important for me or for someone else to be able to, because we are licensed, we are registered, and this is public information, it's in the public domain. The Counselors and Psychologists Board, gazetted us, and you can go and say, is Marion really registered or not? So when an expert speaks, they are not speaking to create followers. They are speaking from a place of knowledge of the subject content. They are speaking from a place of empirical and statistical understanding. They are speaking from a place of ethical responsibility. That as we sit here, I am sitting here with an understanding that I am under a board. I am under my institution. I am under the brand and the umbrella of FarmHub. So if I am saying something that is not accurate, then I can be, the
consequences.
Yeah, the consequences are huge. If I mislead the public, then I am actually not being what we call a gatekeeper of the profession. Even when we train students and send them to the practicum sites, we are responsible as supervisors, and the work they do must be ethical enough. It must be based on the best practices and the best understanding. So even media experts, they can have a good understanding of the subject, but you still need the expert, so that you are also putting yourself at a place where you're not taking legal issues or taking lightly someone's profession lightly. And that is why even on AI and all these spaces, so they tell you, please, this is not the last thing. Seek help.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of self-diagnosis that is going on today in the Google and AI community. But and a lot of people are coming to tell you, oh, I think I am I have divergent disorders. I think I have depression. I think I am narcissistic. But it's because they have done an inventory, not even looked totally at the DSM, you know, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Profession, that helps us to understand and to communicate between the medics and the mental health practitioners, so that you're able to see, this one doesn't feel criteria, so I might be having symptoms, but how long have they lasted? You know, because there's a definite criteria that can make you be ready to say, this is it. But also there's levels of severity. And levels of severity tell us, is this one that we leave to resolve themselves because it's been a place of loss or something that is bringing them down in terms of their emotions? Or is this someone who actually needs psychological support through counseling? Or is this someone who needs counseling and medication? Or is this someone who needs medication, hospitalization? And then later we will consider psychotherapy.
Okay, great. I'm so passionate about that. The thing for experts. I'm so glad you said it. So, when speaking about suicide, and in this case, specifically when reporting on death by suicide, the media often focuses on a single cause. But as we've explored during this series in previous episodes, suicide is a deeply complex issue.
It is.
With many contributing factors. So in your opinion, how can we encourage a more nuanced and sensitive reporting that captures that complexity?
It's doing exactly that, continuously speaking of the multiplicity of issues that are underlying in suicidal behavior. We call them suicidal behavior before we really get to the full suicide. Suicidal behavior talks about suicidal thinking or suicidal ideation. It talks about suicidal planning. It talks about suicidal attempts and also self-harm. Self-harm is where people are involved in cutting themselves. Tattooing, men do a lot of tattooing because it looks girlish to cut. So they tattoo, and when I am hurting, I can cut again on the tattoo and nobody will really tell. But also alcohol and substance use. Alcohol and substance use. We know for sure that the men will do more lethal stuff, and therefore that's why we see the end result of a male attempted suicide becomes a completed suicide. So instead of focusing on what is single and dramatic, we need to be able to focus on what is common and preventable. And because the person who's gone is gone, how can we be able to help those others who are at risk or who are experiencing some of the same symptoms? And also to be able to see, okay, this is a male. I'm just giving you factors based on my research. This is a male who's a fourth-year student who was very happy to be in campus because they were out of home. Yeah, they left a home with family drama. They're unsure whether they will get employment, and with AI developments. So there's a question of, I am a man who very soon is leaving campus and I'm going to be expected to get into the work market and I don't have work. I am going to leave the hostel where I've been enjoying my freedom back to the family where people are fighting. And I did not want to go back there. Okay? I have developed this new pattern of, when I am distressed, I drink something. And my father says two men can't drink in the same home. Okay? So, again, I don't have resources. I'm going to lose my friends. If I'm going back home to Eldoret or Nakuru, I left 4 years ago to come to campus in Nairobi. And therefore, who do I have as friends again? So my social network is going. So you're looking at that, you're remembering little social support, no problem solving skills, family distresses, lack of employment, and my gender already predisposes me to, you are finished, you need to find a job, you need to get married, the social clock is ticking.
Yeah.
So the demands, and then I've not even added the family expectation. Oh, you are the firstborn, you're the one leading and showing the way here. And by the way, students told me, By the time they are first, second year, the parents have already given up on them. They told them, now you can find your own financial.
Yeah.
So even the pocket money that was coming, it will no longer come. So even the little money I had to walk around and work around is not going to be there. So as we are looking at why are fourth-year male students committing suicide, but we are not looking at all these factors that are facilitating the distress that this individual is going through. And I love my college, I love my institution, because we have courses that help students to adjust to university life, and we have a course that helps students to prepare to leave college and know how tough the world is. At the very end, in your fourth year, in your senior year, as you're getting out, we are able to sit with you. And I love the fact that some of these courses are actually taught by psychologists, to be able to say, hey, guys, think about this. Think about the possibilities of what, where, why, and how you can be able to do this. And I think these are conversations that need to be brought up in media. The way we have multifactorial distress involved, we need multifactorial experts to solve the problem. We need people in the public sector to be able to help us. How can we create more job opportunities? We need the politicians to stop cheating Gen Zs and tell them, this is how we are going to help you create hope in this life that you're living in. Increase abilities for people not only to get jobs, but to create their own. Support business and industries. Don't kill us with taxes. To be able to have a meaningful engagement, so that we are not stealing from anyone, conning anyone, that we are able to see, the way through. Let's talk with families. When does a parent stop being a parent? The fact that you're 25 does not mean you're mature enough to die, and for us to lose you. Being able also to separate marital problems with parenting, that we can create a healthy home even though me and your dad are not working. Even if there is separation and divorce, there is room left that the marital relationship has ended, but the parental relationship continues to be involved. Sometimes it's even just the mental support, the normal support. When someone is sick, let's send them to the hospital, so that every single aspect becomes important. Let's encourage people to enjoy the sun, to go and exercise. Let us encourage ways that people can also have good recreational and social support. Let's not just be our workaholic nation. Let's create moments that we can be able to enjoy our lives. Let's have clean jokes. Let's have clean media, and we'll be able to provide healthy opportunities.
Just from your answer, you've been able to clearly illustrate the nuance. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that we need experts in the room with us having these conversations, because I can just imagine that a reporter would not be able to speak about it the way you have. And I think more people need to really appreciate the fact that somebody has studied and researched on this, and to platform them so that we can have more beneficial conversations. Because you've touched on so much that maybe somebody sitting at home would be like, oh, I never thought about that. I never thought about how, maybe, I don't know, recreationally this can help, or politics comes into this, or this comes into that. So it's really, really important to have that.
Politics is very key because it gives us the policies.
True.
It gives us the policies to be able to ensure that if I have a mental health issues, because the other thing we are having is people can't afford therapy.
True.
People cannot afford therapy. So how can we be able to ensure that we hire more psychologists and psychiatrists in our hospitals? I want to highlight Machakos County. It's done a great job in being able to actually include a number of psychologists in their hospitals. Unlike Kiambu, is the county where I come from. And I'm like, why are we having a problem? To the extent where during COVID, we actually lost a psychiatrist to suicide. And when you go to the station where that psychiatrist was, they were overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed themselves, and with what was going on during COVID. And you can imagine having the kind of size of hospitals that Kiambu has when you have 2 psychiatrists in a station and 1 psychologist. What are we going to do? So ensure that we have the manpower in the hospitals, but also that the cost is not too much. At the private practices, we charge 3,000, 5,000, 8,000 per session.
Up to even 10,000.
I know.
Yeah.
How many Kenyans? And for us, in our station where we are, we say, we understand the Kenyan population. We do pro bonos. We will not ignore a person because you don't have resources. We create environments where churches can create a mental health department with experts who are already trained in there, where our students can come. They get the experience, we give the free service. So it's really a partnership. Yeah.
Okay. When we're speaking about bringing experts on board in the media, clearly there's need for that collaboration between media and the experts.
Yeah.
How can we change or encourage more of this? How can media actually bring in the experts to have these conversations? Do you see any room for that, any possibility for that at the moment?
We are already starting.
Yeah, over
as
here,
we are
true.
having this conversation. But I think we need to go deeper. Mm-hmm. If we did this in 2012, as I'm telling you, and we are still at it, we are still at it, then it tells me that they are still, and that's what we also say in research, the fact that a phenomena is still continuing, then it means we haven't found all the factors and all the ways to be able to deal with it. So more research needs to be carried out, more conversations need to be done. But one of the things that I would want to ask you, Paulyne, is this. How many of our media people have gone to therapy themselves?
Very good question.
Because that's where we need to go. That's where we need to go. If you've never discovered the benefit of being supported to have better mental well-being, you have no right to speak about it. Because you don't know.
True.
And for us who are training and are being trained, we are forced to go for personal hours of therapy, so that it feels how vulnerable it feels to be in the seat with someone, you telling them about their lives. Because we can't have public sessions on media, but we can have psychoeducation. We can be able to bring psychoeducation. So we can talk about it. We can model by ourselves going through therapy and understanding what the process is, even as we engage the experts. But we can also push policies. Media is so good at pushing an agenda.
Sure.
When it matters to them.
And sometimes the wrong agendas, but they push and push. True.
So how about we continue to highlight, we go county to county, shaming and celebrating what's going on down on the ground, and be able to highlight stories of hope. That's the other thing that media can do. Can we highlight survivors or people who have walked out of suicidal attempts, and so that they give others the path of how to get out of it? Because we don't know, but people can be able to explain their stories. And this must always be done with an expert. Don't just bring a storyteller and an expert is not there to correct, to bring the story into the right direction. Otherwise, we'll find ourselves also losing the goal of why that is happening. So if we are able to do some of those things, then we can be able to bring a good combination between what's happening in media and reduce the distresses and bring up a generation that is healthier. Yeah.
I think as a community we have a lot of reflection and work to do. And for me, anytime I see media reporting in a particular way, the question that always comes to mind is, what's the end goal here?
Yes.
What are we doing? And you can tell that it's not really to help in any way. It's just to get people talking about the story. And I think there's not a lot of thought about what the effect of what they're doing is. So I really hope we'll be able to reflect some more and try to do better. So let's talk about social media, right? So young Kenyans spend significant time on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. How do you see these platforms shaping how young people understand or express mental health struggles? Because that's part of our everyday media now. A huge part of media is that.
What I sometimes do with my junior students is go to their phones and we all access the part that tells us how long we've been on.
Hey, that can be humbling.
Say, okay, so as we begin this semester, what are your goals? How can you reduce that? And some people are shocked. What? I've been, my half of my wake time, I am on something.
Yeah.
And it's our reality. It's really, really our reality. Even for parenting, I keep saying, most parents, we no longer give a pacifier, we give a phone.
True.
Shut the child up. This generation is the most informed generation. But there's a disconnect between the information we know and how we live our very own lives. Media has provided us an opportunity to hear, to learn, but that has not helped us. It has helped us to pick what we want and leave what is helpful. Because the same media that will tell you how suicide happens is the same one that can tell you how to prevent. But very few will go online to ask that question. And that takes us back to habits of what we are doing on social media. The world of social media has created a fake world where people don't talk about problems. And if they do, they talk for attention, not for help seeking. It is to increase viewership and to become a little bit more famous. And therefore, we are creating a fake society where we deny problems, where we put on so much makeup and continue to look like we are happy. But we don't go down to issues. And then we self-isolate. Because I'm on this gadget, who am I supposed to be talking to? Even the people I'm talking to are comfortable being spoken to behind the screen.
Yeah.
I teach a class called Courtship and Marriage. And one of the questions I ask is, even in the exam, what are some of the dating sites? And they know them, all of them. How many have tried them? You've tried them. And it's easier to date behind the screen than with a person you sit and have a date with. Because I can hide, I can be cautious. I don't have to make commitments. When I'm behind the screen, I can tell you what I want you to hear without really being responsible for what I have said and what I have promised and have not delivered. So it is important for us to see how can these good tools that have been provided in our society become educators, become our companions, help us to create better social networks so that we are able to be healthy human beings. We must learn that we can't be on the screen throughout. There's screen fatigue. There's techno stress. We need to get to meet another human being that can empathize with us while we see the empathy, not just hear it. And a doctor who meets with you face to face and the other one who meets you online, there is a difference. There is a difference. They can see who they are dealing with. They can hear their stories because, again, we need to be culturally sensitive. That's what AI has not yet been able to get to. But also we have individual differences. You know, who I am, what I do is totally different from you. And therefore, if we are all just churning the same information without considering where we are coming from, our childhood histories, we may be even siblings, but our experiences with our parent is totally different.
Yeah.
You know, you are loved, me, I felt hated, you know, and that creates a different script. Though we share blood, we shared parents, we shared a house, yet our lived experiences of what it is that we went through is totally different. So it is important for us to be able to use social media responsibly and not to use it to isolate and not to use it for mental health and physical, as physical resources for us to treat ourselves and to self-diagnose. And also to remember, I have to keep reminding my children, it's fake, it's a movie. Someone is being paid to do that. So you can't just live your life based on what you're seeing on the screen. And as long as I don't know you, I've not met you, I hold everything you say with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think about social media, there was a time I was just thinking about it and I thought that while before the era of social media, yes, we knew things about people, but it was very limited. But now I think everybody is in everybody's business.
Yes.
So it can feel very overwhelming. You know too much about too many people.
You also tell too much.
Yeah,
That's the other
who
problem.
you don't even know anyway. Sometimes you ask yourself, do I even know this person like in real life? Maybe not, but then you know so much about them, and even you, like you said, you're sharing so much on the internet, and that can have a lot of effects. But we're seeing
and internet doesn't forget.
No.
So
it
you
doesn't.
share about your little child
Yes.
when they are little, and they grow up and they are wondering, who even gave you permission to share my story like this?
I think we'll get to a point where kids will be suing their parents.
I
I'm
think
waiting
so.
when they're a bit older. When we're talking about social media and the effects of social media, is it about the amount of time spent on social media, or is it how people are using social media?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. Because if it's the amount of time, if that's all you do, then what else are you doing in your life? So it means there's something being neglected for you to be on social media for a long time. So it is because we have all this science and research about screen time and how it affects even the development of a child, or even a student today. You know, there is a lot that is going on, even as we are using AI, because if AI expects, we need to have some knowledge to use AI.
True.
Because it will give you what you ask. Same as the computer age, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So if you ask a garbage-like question, it will give you
Garbage
answers. And same with what we are partaking from social media. If we are partaking content that is going to make us feel that we are unhappy in our lives, other people's lives are better than us, then what happens is we continue to grow a life of comparison. And I never fit. I'm never good enough because I don't have the same looks, the same amount of money, the same amount. So the more you take in social media based on your line of interest, the more dissatisfied you become with your life. The more dissatisfied you become with your life, the more frustrated you become with your life. The more you doubt yourself, the more you think you're a burden, the more you think your life, you need to end your life. Because it's not as good as another person's life.
True.
So it's both. It's both the time we spend and also what we spend watching and looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Kenyans have a rich sense of humor, but sometimes humor online makes light of suicide or uses self-deprecating jokes like I want to die. Where is the line between coping with humor and masking potentially dangerous intentions?
That's a very interesting question because when you are with a sanguine, their greatest way to avoid personal questions, if you know any sanguine in your life, is that they will create a lot of humor.
True.
It pushes conversations away. We will not get very personal, and they will mask a lot of their pain and unprocessed information right there. I am so grateful for Kenyans because they are resilient. And sometimes it's our humor that is helpful.
True.
But we need to balance between what we create as humor and what we bring reason and seriousness into. If we want people to take something serious, then we need not to create humor around it. Serious conversations need serious conversations. We can create humor, and even in therapy we use humor to de-escalate emotional intensity and all that, but we don't stay there. Even in group dynamics, in our work environment, we appreciate the tension reliever in the group and in the meeting, but we will not focus our meeting agenda to the tension reliever's conversation. Otherwise, we will gain nothing. So there is need for balance. There is need to be able to create seriousness when it comes to suicide and suicidal behavior conversations, mental health conversations, relationship, because that's another place media is creating a nightmare for us. Today, the script of relationship and men has totally been distorted. And family issues, which becomes part of our problem with the suicide issue, because we are trivializing the evils in our society by making jokes about them and not really dealing with it. So humor is good, we need to laugh, but what are we laughing at? It's the same way you can't laugh at someone who's sick. You can't laugh at someone who's dying. You know, in fact, if you do, then we take you to the hospital. We realize you're not okay. It becomes part of our of our symptoms. You're like, the conversation and the behavior, it doesn't add up. You know, so the effect does not add up. And you know, if we were using an MSc, a mental status examination, we're like, the effect does not match the experience and what is going on. So let's talk about our problems, and let's laugh when we need to laugh. And especially when this is being done in big platforms with our celebrities who
True.
we know both social media or, public figures, even MCs, in functions and in places where that is, let's remove that conversation. It's just like, when as a nation we were seriously dealing with HIV, we were not laughing about it. Or COVID, it may have been a joke when we began, but death, and as we are saying, to some people it's a number. It's 15 people died this week. To me, it's a person. It's a life. It's a child. It's a sibling. It's a client. It's a student. I have a name on it. And I have emotions around it. So as people laugh, I am not laughing. I am sad and disconnected and feeling like my environment does not understand me. So let's ensure that we are not laughing at the wrong things. Yeah.
And when we're talking about humor, because just like you said, Kenyans are very funny. You know, they can laugh about anything.
Yes.
And sometimes
start
that's
a song.
positive. Exactly.
Write
It
a song
could be
today.
positive,
Yeah.
but, you know, sometimes it has its negative effects. From your experience, is it that we as a society don't know how to have difficult conversations, or is it just a discomfort? We don't want to have those difficult conversations, or is it both?
I think it is. As we said earlier, we were brought up by who? By parents who wanted results, and they wanted good results. We were brought up in homes where failing is not something normal. Yet we know that there'll be a number one and there'll be a, someone who's not doing well. So instead of us helping the person to see what went wrong, our goal focuses on you're wrong. And we are not supported to work through what is going on. Like, we don't want to face the issue. We don't want to face the actual issue that maybe I didn't have school fees and I went to do the exam worried. And we are not focusing on that. You're like, why did you fail? You are not focusing on the fact that there has been conflict at home. And therefore, I also am divided in my own, or I have a mental block because my amygdala has been hijacked by distresses at home, and therefore the frontal lobe shuts off, or the unresolved trauma through growing up did not allow my frontal lobe to develop fully, because trauma changes really the brain formation. So it is important for us to have the conversation. Learn to call out what is going on. Learn to name your pain. I don't think we know how to name our pain. And we push away people who are too serious and try to talk about things that we are not ready to deal with. We can postpone dealing with a problem, but we can never ignore it.
True.
And as a country, we are so good sometimes to ignore it. We move to the next big thing very fast so that we will look like we will not be overwhelmed. I think also that's another factor, that if we stop to think about it, we will be overwhelmed. We will have to deal with all the other things that we did not want to deal with. If we stop to think about suicide, we will uncover family issues, we will uncover policy issues, we will uncover, our structures and systems that are not ready to sustain us. We are afraid what will happen if we actually. But what's the worst that can happen?
I ask people the same thing. What is the worst that can happen? Even if you fall apart, you can still
come up together.
Yeah.
One time I was out of the country, and I remember the friend I was living with, they were told of another friend, Kenyans, whose child had attempted suicide. And I was amazed at the response. You know who responded? This is an 18-year-old who attempted suicide in the house, and the mother didn't know. So she called her friend. The friend called 911. So the fire department came with paramedics, with social workers, with the police, and they were just knocking the door to say, "Hi, miss, get off the way. We have received a distress call." So they have come with sirens, all coming to pick one child straight to the mental hospital.
I don't think we can relate. In this country, I don't think we can relate.
We just listen and we say, couldn't you have helped them with a rope?
Yeah. In fact, for most people, unfortunately, that's why it seems unfortunate, because if you attempt and you survive, then you go to hospital and you can be treated so badly to the point where you're asking yourself, why am I still here? Even in the community, you can be treated so badly. So
I've actually met someone who said, I am so bad, I can't even kill myself right. Even trying to kill myself, I failed. Like I fail at everything, even I failed at killing myself. Which is so different from this community I'm defining, where literally everybody stops. And it's not a joke. It is a serious thing that all these departments, both in the federal and in the state level, attend to it. Yeah.
And I think that brings us to my next question. You can tell the difference between that community and our community, where people, the narrative could be that suicide is selfish, right? Which is why even when you attempt, somebody is like, see, just do it and go. You know, what is the issue?
Us? Yes.
Exactly, like you're being selfish or you're being self-centered. And they think maybe somebody is doing it to cause harm to other people or look for attention. How do you respond to that, especially when it shows up in public conversations or in media?
Sad for me. It's a sad way to look at that, especially if we are, because our scripts of looking at suicide and suicidal behavior is different. Coming from an age and a generation over the years, from 1963 to 2025, of criminalizing suicide as a country, that's how we'll look at it. We'll look at the place of suicide and suicidal behavior the same way we did drug and substance use, especially addicts. The same way. The same way we treated mental health patients. Let's go back to the history. They were chained, they were restricted, they were beaten, they were told that they are a disgrace in the society. Why? Because we never understood that this person is sick. This is what I go shouting everywhere. No one is mad. People have mental health problems that hold them back from being or behaving normal and being in the streets. A lot of people in the streets have schizophrenia.
True.
They are not mad.
Nope.
No one wants to be naked and dirty and away from family. And some families really have tried to actually keep these individuals at home. So it's not a family problem that you create it to be a moral issue. You know, it's not a curse, because now we take what we can't understand beyond our social script and cultural script, we take it to spirituality. It is a curse. It is, the neighbor who looked at this child badly, and now we have a problem. So when we begin to blame people who are sick, it's like telling someone, it's your fault you have malaria.
True.
Yeah.
You know, I love it when you give that example, because that sounds like such a no-brainer. But then now when we put it in this context, I'm sure someone will be like, okay.
So is suicide and suicidal behavior a moral issue or a health issue? When we take it as a health issue, we will not make fun about it, and we will not blame people for that. This is what I tell my clients as we are contracting, because we talk about the contract of engaging, and we say the only limit to confidentiality is if you plan to harm yourself or to harm another. At that point, I have the expectation. I am expected. I am responsible for you as you're seated here. So I have the obligation to protect you. And I tell them, I protect you because you don't know what you're doing. You're unwell. You're not within your frame of good thinking. That is why you need protection. So I'll protect you and help you understand that this is self-harm, this is homicide, this is going to hurt other people, this is a criminal thing, like to kill someone, but you are unwell, and therefore I want to protect you because you're not within, because we even say someone who is within that, when you're unwell, you can't even consent.
True.
Yeah, because you're not in the right state of mind. Secondly, I warn you. If I can't protect you, I warn you. I say, I'm going to say this. I'm going to call somebody else. I'm going to have someone else in this conversation because you're not okay, and I've tried to help you see you're not okay. So I need someone who can help you to be okay and who we can make decisions with about your life because you're not okay. Okay? But also now when the protection doesn't work, when the warning doesn't work, then we go ahead and we report. In other countries, we report differently. We report where now such a team of people can come and take you to the hospital. And that's usually, we say that's a hospitalization. Any suicidal attempt should not go home. They should actually go to the hospital and have a 24-hour surveillance. And not every hospital can handle mental health patients. So we also need to know that. And we need to create room to have more mental health hospitals that are affordable and that have experts that can be able to treat patients across the board. And every day, including holidays. Because sometimes we send clients to hospitals and the psychiatrist doesn't come. It's a holiday. So what are we going to do with that patient?
That's such a Kenyan thing.
We're on holiday. We are closed. We are away for lunch.
Exactly. And that's just the whole day. You'll be away for lunch till the next day.
Yeah. So the place we can be able to talk about mental health and suicidal ideations and attempts and suicide as a mental health issue. It's a medical crisis. It's not a moral issue. Same with substance use. It's not a moral issue. It is a mental health issue. It is a medical issue. It is a person crying for help. Not now. We release them from rehab and their friends are saying, let's see if it worked.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, that's terrible. But that shift in narrative that you're talking about is so important. I'm actually thinking about AIDS and how in the beginning, it was very much a moral issue.
Yes.
But until now, the shift became, this is a health issue and we need to educate people and help them understand. That's why now the change starts happening.
And we took years to do that.
Exactly, and that took years.
And I totally remember even the media. There were captions, songs, conversations. Yes. You remember waking up to go to school and the news is being read and some of those in between conversations and songs. Because everyone is listening at that point. Everyone is awake. So can we create such captions? And I go back to COVID because we remember it. It's not too far. That's exactly what we did. We put billboards everywhere, not just in the hospital environment, literally everywhere. Even when you're queuing at the bank, there was billboards. Yes, literally everywhere. We started saying, hey, if you see these symptoms, call the doctor, take yourself, isolate yourself. Solution-focused conversations.
That is so important. And we actually have things we can look to and see this worked. When we're talking about AIDS, this worked. When we're talking about COVID, this worked. Yeah. So now when we're talking about suicide, why not reframe it and stop making this a moral issue and actually look at it as a health concern, because that's exactly what it is. And that can help us then maybe make more progress. That's an amazing point.
Yeah.
Okay, so not all media is harmful. Right? We've seen Kenyans use their platforms to tell open and honest conversations. What examples come to mind where the conversation felt responsible and compassionate? Do you have any?
As you talk about that, the thing that just came up to my mind was how we were taught sexuality in school. That's what came up. What was helpful? No, the scary pictures were not helpful.
They were not helpful. Or the scary videos.
Yeah, they were not helpful. Yeah. But the gentle, compassionate, understanding conversation was helpful. Where we were told that you're growing, you are at a stage where your hormones are screaming at everything that you have, and you're going to have these feelings, But biology does not make moral decisions. And by the way, I repeat that statement in my human sexuality classes over and over and over again. Information is good and great, but it doesn't make decisions for you. True. So we can be able, even a testimony, if we were to look at it from a spiritual perspective, a great testimony does not glorify the pain and the problem. It gives us the victory. Even customer service and advertisement. The best advertisement is not how sad I was because I could not find the best phone to take the best photos. No, it's the voila, I now found the phone that could do this for me, you know? And that's what calls for the buyer to come. So what will call me out to come is a story of, by the way, this is normal. This is so normal. It's so normal that every time you ask in a classroom or in a setup, how many of us have thought about killing ourselves? We are many. How many of us, in fact, my question the other day was, how many of us thought that our parents were not our parents? Yeah, many of us, because of how we were treated. Even though you look like one of them, or you sound like them, literally. But there is something that you experienced in that relationship that made you not feel like you are part of them. But as we normalize this conversation, we are like, we, without belittling people who are in that situation, be able to say, okay, this is normal. This has happened to these people, but this is how you can get out of it. And for me, my greatest mentors were not mentors who told me how they never experienced the problems. It's those who told me, I experienced the problems, and this is how I got out of it. Or these are the mistakes I made. That will help someone listen. If we can tell stories of hope, if we can tell stories of how, not just what, but how. If we can tell stories of what's going on when this is going on in your life, make meaning-making stories, hope-generating stories, normalizing the conversation, helping us to see that it might happen, it can happen, it has happened, but this is what you can do about it. This is what you can do about it. But also, we need to tell stories of some of the things that are not said as the underlying issues. Because I sometimes feel that the reason why we don't attend to issues too seriously is because we don't want to deal with the root cause.
Correct. Very correct.
We don't want to deal with the root cause.
We don't even want to approach the root cause. Like, you could see it, but you're just like,
And some of these root causes touch us very, very personally. And they call us to change, but we are not willing to change. We are not willing to change. Or we are not sure we want to touch there.
True.
You know how frustrating it is to sit with an adolescent, listen to the problems, and send them back to the very home where those problems are manufactured without touching that system? And that's why, for me, I chose the path of as a systemic therapist, so that I will take my head there. Because from a systemic lens, there's a place we are allowed to step as advocates.
True.
So I now leave my therapist's face and step as an advocate of what is right and what needs to happen. But as I told you, the systems will fail us. The systems will fail us. For example, if all these suicidal things are beneath a childhood abuse that happened with a family member that was silenced and threatened, This person grows up, and all the leaders in their life become abusive to them. Yeah? But we can never unearth this person if they went public and say, I was sexually abused by my father when I was 10 to until when I was 25. We will gang that child. We will, the whole family will, they will disown them. And therefore, what we have done, we've not only ostracized that individual and continued to put them in a place where mental health problems become perpetual for them, is that we have held ourselves back from addressing child abuse. And therefore, we are creating more ACEs, more advanced childhood experiences for future suicidal behaviors. So the more we are avoiding the underlying issues, the more we are not creating the legal systems or ensuring that the ones we have, Kenya is very good with laws and policies.
Very.
It is in the administrative and in ensuring that they are followed to the letter, that we are corrupt, that we refuse to take the structures to the very end. But if somebody was willing, if somebody knew that what I am avoiding today is going to be my tears tomorrow, whether I'm a police, whether I'm a child welfare service provider, that what I am avoiding today is going to hurt me tomorrow, then I'm going to do my job for the benefit of the society, not for the adults sitting across the table to benefit.
True.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, when you're talking about the root cause, I actually think about that a lot. And I think for many people, the reason we avoid the root cause is because the minute we start doing that, it will call for a lot of us to deeply examine our own spaces. And we can find that within our own spaces, there are very serious issues that we have to address. Yeah. So many times people want to come and say, okay, this is the problem, deal with that problem. Don't start asking me questions. I have nothing to do with that. And we see it also with parents. Sometimes you look at a child and you're saying, this child is a problem. Can you deal with that? They're saying, I don't know, they're having suicidal ideation. Please get rid of that. But then you don't want to get into, okay, let's talk about how is the environment at home. You could be contributing, through certain things that are happening. This could be a contributing factor.
And what can I do?
Exactly.
Because humility calls for us to ask ourselves, okay, I am part of this. What can I do? Yes. What can I do about it? Because if we were all to ask people with suicidal ideas to list what and who they think is part of their distresses, with a percentage on it, mine might be 50%, but yours could be 35 or 20 and another. And then we ask ourselves, how can we, if I appear in my child's list, even if it's 5%, how can I deal with my 5% so that I remove it from them imagining I don't need them, I don't love them. In fact, some of the things that came up, by the way, from my study from the student over why the psychological stressors that made them vulnerable, there was emotional distress where they felt very hopeless. About 35.1% of the population I interviewed, 35.1% felt very helpless, and 33.3% felt very depressed. Very depressed. Economic issues. 28.1% had financial difficulties. It's either because of poverty issues, divorce and separation. Somebody somewhere is using family finances for something else. Yeah? And, suicidal issues because of academic issues. Yeah. There's an academic inability to perform. But is this child foolish? I don't think so. Is this child having maybe distracted relationships or priorities. Yes. So how come they don't know how to create boundaries? How come they have a cut tomorrow, but they are the ones hosting a party tonight? Yeah? They're the ones who will perpetually not come to class. In public universities, they are the ones who have serious jobs. They come during cuts. How's they are making money? Yeah. So again, the place of being able to ask ourselves, how do we become balanced human beings? Because that child is trying to make money. Why? Because a parent somewhere decided, you take care of yourself. Parentification.
Yes.
Yeah. After all, you're in campus, by the way, and don't forget your siblings. So you find some people are receiving help, and that's the one paying school fees for the other children. They are being educated by MasterCard, but they are the ones buying food at home.
We have a lot of work to we have a lot of work to do and many things to think about. But throughout, with all the conversations that we've had, there's just a lot of emphasis on there's so many areas we need to look at. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things, and everybody needs to be involved to
Yes.
help us get to the root of the matter and hopefully deal with this health issue. No, not moral, not spiritual, health issue, and make things better. So
that is experienced by everyone.
Exactly.
The rich, the poor,
Exactly.
the educated, the uneducated.
Exactly. It
The
could
small,
be you, it could be me.
It just could be anybody.
It could be anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we wrap up, as someone involved in both mental health advocacy and research, how do you personally navigate the balance between raising awareness and avoiding causing public alarm in a way that isn't helpful?
Is being a responsible gatekeeper. When you're a responsible gatekeeper, you know who to tell what. Okay? Sometimes as practitioners or even as medics, a story of a person, popular, famous, political, comes up. And people are talking about their cause of death, the disease they are fighting. You don't go shouting and say, wait. Let me tell you the truth. No. You sit still. If you can influence one or two people telling the story, you do. And you don't tell them the truth, you tell them. It's important not to talk about people in a way that is destructive and in a way that will cause anxiety. So we are all responsible in even the information we disseminate. The reason we do research is to solve problems, not to create alarm. You know? And when we discover something alarming, we need to quickly call policymakers and people who can turn the wheels of society very fast and invest in the issue so that we can bring forth a solution. For us to create a problem that we cannot solve is irresponsibility. Okay? For me to now go around and tell all the students, first year, all of you, okay, you come from which country, you come from which home, you are a risk. Suicide is a risk in your life. It's the fact, but I will not go telling, everybody that you are at risk. There is a way to be able to disseminate that information. There is a way to be able to responsibly do it to the public, to the family, to the individuals, to the community, to the society. We say there is a way to tell me I'm a bad person without me feeling bad about it. It's to call me aside and say, Ma'am, Marion, my friend, could we have coffee? And that's already an environment created for me. And then I don't just sit during coffee and I tell you, by the way, I came to tell you, you're a bad person, I'm breaking up with you. Yeah? And it's also not pretending and say, it's not about you, it's about me. It's being in that space of being able to sit with that information and relay it as you watch feedback. Relay it with age-appropriate conversation. Age-appropriate conversation. My 10-year-old listening to 10 Ways to Die, that's not responsible information. In a cartoon, and a kid-like song. That's not responsible. Even if you're such a creative, that's not responsible. That creative individual can actually come up with another creative songs of 10 ways to prevent you from dying of suicide. Why are they choosing to be like that? Who hurt them? What is it that's going on in their own lives that they are not willing to make positive contribution in society? Are they that evil? Who can call them out? Who can call out a person who sings a bad song out? Not just block them and tear them down, but help them. Help them. We say abusers need to be supported. Same to a suicide attempter. In fact, anyone who's attempted suicide, we need to work with them closely because we already know they are not okay. We already know. But also not to put them like they are disabled. No. There are very many of us who have a diagnosis and are living healthy lives. We are taking care of ourselves. We are taking our meds. We do our hours of therapy. We enjoy the sun. We go and exercise. We have a healthy social life. We have a healthy spiritual life where we can be able to connect with our God, and we are able to know that we have meaning and purpose. So we need to support one another to find that meaning and purpose, to find our identity. It is not in what we do. It is in who we are, valued, loved, human, able to influence a whole generation with the skills and the positivity that we have within us. And if we see every person with good, every single person with good, even the sick one, then we can call the good out of them. And that should be our motto. That should be our direction. That there is something good in this person. And try to get it out. Try to help them see it when they are overwhelmed by their temporal view of issues that are going on at this particular point. We can be able to help them see themselves in a bigger way. See themselves standing up. My last comment on that. Viktor Frankl is a theorist that we know in psychology very well. He's one of those people that survived in the Nazi age. And you know why he survived? He said he always looked beyond the bar window. He saw himself alive out of the concentration camp while he lost his family members and even his very own wife. He saw himself standing as a professor, teaching people how to survive a bad situation. That's what he saw. He didn't see himself dead like everybody else who was being smoked around. He saw himself living through it, living through every single torture that he went through. He saw himself living through it, and he actually became that. He actually became that. So the fact that someone attempted suicide when they were 14 does not mean that they are done. They have a whole life ahead of them, if only they find the right people that can be able to help them look above. And sometimes it's holding that person's hand a day at a time, just as we do with the substance users. Today I've been sober is just for today. Just for today. And as we continue to grow and get into that space, then we can build on yesterday's skills so that we can build tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a powerful last point. I think that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your insight and the powerful words that you have shared with our community. I'm sure everybody will benefit from everything that you have said. Thank you.
Thank you for the forum and for the conversation. Let's keep it going.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. How's that? We're done. There's a lot of very important points that Dr. Marion highlighted. And one of the ones that has really stuck with me is about shifting the narrative, shifting the story that we tell. We tend to look at suicide as a moral issue. We tend to demonize and stigmatize. To help us really get to the root of the matter and get to a point where we are dealing with this issue sustainably and actually coming to real helpful solutions, we need to shift our narrative and look at this as a health issue, not a moral issue, and not anything to stigmatize or demonize anybody. Maybe that's something we can all start thinking about. How can we shift our narrative? How can we tell these stories differently? How can we explore it in a manner that brings in compassion and empathy and offers real solution and help? Thank you for listening to today's episode, and see you next time.